Hello, thank you for joining us here today. This is Michael Halper with Sales Scripter, and today we are going to talk about how to deliver sales presentations that close deals. And the agenda for today is first, I want to start out with talking about some things you can do before you deliver your sales presentation. That honestly, this is, I think, the biggest area for improvement for most salespeople. The next thing that we'll talk about is creating your message. So, kind of organizing your thoughts in terms of what you're going to say when you are what you're going to say in your presentation. Then I'll provide an outline for how to organize the different things that you talk about in your presentation. And then we'll wrap up with things you can do to close at the end of your presentation. So let's just get started right away with talking about what you can do pre-presentation, what you can do before you actually deliver your presentation. And it all goes back to the sales process that you're trying to take a prospect through. The prospect that you're delivering a presentation to, they are in your sales process. You are taking them through a series of steps, and the biggest improvement that you can make is organizing the actual steps that you're trying to take them through. And so we recommend 3 sales process steps. If what I talk about here you want more information on, it is outlined in a training module specifically on how to manage and organize your sales process. And that is on our YouTube channel. So be sure to check that out. But at a higher level, or moving through that real quickly, there are 3 steps that we recommend you go through. And there are 3 steps that we recommend you go through. And it starts with the first step is the interaction. So this is when you're interacting with the prospect for the first time. Could be a cold call, could be an email. Then you typically want to progress to some sort of more established conversation where you're talking in more detail. And then you can progress to some sort of explanation step of your sales process. And this is really where the presentation usually resides. The problem that most salespeople make is that they jump from the first interaction. Maybe it's a cold call, they're talking to someone, and then they try to schedule a meeting. But that meeting is the explanation where they're trying to show a demonstration or show a presentation. And what they're skipping here is they're basically skipping the conversation. And so when someone jumps to just let me show up and talk about my product, what they're typically using is a product selling approach, a product selling sales message where they're talking primarily about this is who I work for, this is what we sell, this is what it does. And that's where you basically they start to engage with the prospect, and then they jump real quickly to talking about all of these things. What we recommend you do, and we've been talking about this a lot in other training modules, is we want to move you to more of a consultative approach where you're focusing more on the prospect, how you can help them, asking good questions. And so to transition to more of a consultative approach, basically what you want to do is you really want to focus on that conversation step before the presentation, because this is where you're going to focus more on the prospect and less on you. The explanation is all about you. The conversation is all about the prospect. And so if we talk about those steps in more detail, just to skip through this really quickly, like I said, the interaction step is really when you're interacting the first time. This could be the cold call or the email. But what I really want to drill into is what most salespeople often skip is that conversation. And the real key thing about the conversation is this is where you have a great opportunity to ask your questions. And it's asking questions and gathering information about the prospect before you deliver your presentation that really make a difference. So going through this process here, the conversation step could be anywhere between 10 to 60 minutes, but this is where you could ask pain questions to learn about what pain points your prospect has. So you can really learn about what's going on. This is where you could ask current state questions where you're trying to identify what are they doing today? What are they using today, where in terms of where you have something to sell or where you have something to provide. And then this is where you could qualify the prospect to learn more about what their role is, what their budget is, what their needs are. And honestly, in the conversation step, you might identify it doesn't even make sense for you to deliver a presentation because the prospect's not qualified. And the great thing about that is that if you skip this step and you deliver a presentation, then you might end up delivering a presentation to a prospect that is not, that it doesn't make sense for you to spend your valuable time presenting to them. And then that's just wasted time. So this step could prevent you from wasting your valuable time. But the other thing that it does is it provides you with valuable information. And then you can make your presentation more about the prospect, tailor your presentation. And that's really where you start to deliver sales presentations that close deals. Then the third step of the process, then the third step of the sales process is the explanation. And this is actually where you're delivering your presentation. So when I show you the outline structure, when I show you the recommended outline for your presentation, that will give you some ideas of how to organize this step of your sales process. Now, you might go through those 3 steps with a prospect as 3 separate conversations. You talk to them on a cold call or at a networking event, then you have an appointment, then you have a presentation. It's very likely that those steps can get combined or condensed. And what you could certainly do, even if you just talk to them and then schedule your presentation, if you haven't had a chance to meet with them, you could have your conversation at the beginning of your demonstration, meaning before you deliver your presentation, ask them some questions, learn about them, and then on the fly, right after that, immediately you can tailor everything you talk about after that to what you've learned just then about them. We call this the instant explanation. So you're basically having a meeting and a presentation and an explanation at the same time. The reason we call this an instant explanation is often what this can often look like is you schedule the conversation and then you improvise and jump into the explanation step. But what you could also do is schedule the explanation step, but then have an improvised conversation on the front end. Another way this could look like is that you talk to them in the initial interaction, and that's a good opportunity for you to ask some more questions and learn more about them before you meet again for the demonstration or presentation. And we refer to this as the instant meeting. Now, the key thing here is really not how you organize these steps, but the key thing is that you're learning about the prospect by asking good questions and using that information to improve your sales presentation, your sales demonstration. And again, that is how you make the biggest improvement in your sales presentation. Another thing that you could do is before your presentation, you could research the prospect. So of course you could go to their website or their product materials and learn more about what the company does in terms of the products they sell. I don't know how many times I've attended a sales presentation demonstration where the salesperson didn't even really look at what we do. And not only does that prevent the salesperson from really tailoring what they're going to show you, but it shows that that salesperson does not have a lot of initiative and curiosity about me as a prospect. Now, certainly you could have a lot of different prospects and deliver many presentations in one day, so you don't have much time to do extensive research, but you could at least just go to their website for 5 minutes, even 3 minutes, and just get an idea of what that prospect sells and does. You might want to go a step further to kind of look at how is the company organized. And when you're selling to big B2B customers, they have different business units. Kind of try to understand who they are. That can make a difference in your presentation. You might want to review the prospect that you're talking to, their social media account. For example, you might want to go to that prospect's LinkedIn profile, learn a little bit more about how they fit in the organization. You might want to learn a little bit about what roles that they've had in the past. Not only can this help you with your sales presentation, but it could help you to build rapport, have some conversation on the front end, and just show that you've taken initiative. You also might want to go through and scan some recent news on the company. That you could go do this on their website or an independent internet search on news events related to that company. This can definitely give you stuff to talk about, help you tailor your message. All right, let's move on to what you're going to say in your presentation. And so this comes down to creating your message and organizing your thoughts. And it goes back to this. So if you're a product selling salesperson, you're typically going to show up with your presentation and talk about yourself. This is my company. This is what we sell. Do you need what I sell? If you want to have a sales presentation that closes more deals, You could have a more consultative approach, which is more on the improvements you can make, the problems you can resolve, and whatnot. So the way to have a consultative sales approach, and the way to have a consultative selling sales presentation, it starts with building your consultative selling sales message. And we've taken you through a process in previous training modules to build your consultative sales message regardless of what you sell. And I'm not going to go through that again, but in a previous module where we taught that, we use an example scenario of selling web design services. So we took you through a step-by-step process to create that message, which basically outlines what does the product include in terms of features and differentiation. Who are you targeting with this sales message? What are the improvements that you can make for that particular buyer? What are some problems you can make go away? What are some questions you can ask to determine if those problems exist? What are some current state questions you could ask? What is an example of another customer that you've helped? When you go through these steps, you create your own sales message, and that's explained in more detail in a previous training module. If that you're curious about that, be sure to check that out. But once you go through those steps, each of those steps gives you a building block. You can use those building blocks to create a sales script, cold emails, objection responses. You can also use those same building blocks to create your sales presentation. And I'm going to show you what that looks like. So you can use your pain questions, not necessarily for your presentation, because hopefully in your presentation, you're presenting information. So you can ask questions before your presentation and you can ask questions at the end. But your building blocks, you certainly have a building block that gives you pain questions. These are great questions to ask before the presentation. So a good place would be the conversation step of the sales process, or just before you start your sales presentation. And then here are some examples of current state questions for the example that we're using of selling web design services. So those are part of your sales message and can be part of your presentation strategy. But let's talk about how to put those other building blocks together to create an outline of your presentation. And I want to be very clear here. I'm not getting into any creative design aspects of your sales presentation. This is only about how to organize your thoughts and your content. And so here are some, again, there's no layout and design of slides here. This is what this is content that you could use to organize what you say and what you talk about. And so it starts with some sort of meeting introduction. And here are just some examples of how to warm up a presentation or a meeting, asking how their day's going, briefly discuss about a current event. Then on the front end, you certainly want to outline the agenda for the meeting, confirm that that matches with the prospect's expectations for the presentation, maybe share details on what you're going to show them, confirm that's what they're wanting to see. Ask if there's anything that they want to add to the agenda, confirm if there's a hard stop so you know how to manage the presentation according to their time, and so confirm if there's a hard stop, and then manage the meeting according to the time that you have to work with. That's how you might want to open your sales presentation. Then right away, we want to make, if you go back to the sales process that I recommend, the interaction step, you want to make that all about the prospect. The conversation step is 50-50. So it's 50% you want to talk about the prospect, 50% you want to talk about you. And then the explanation step of the sales process should be 20% on the prospect and 80% on you. So the first 20% of your presentation you want to make about the prospect. And the way you do this is basically you can use your pain points building block. Now, if you're really successful with creating good pain questions, and then during the conversation sales process step, you asked your pain questions, and if you identified that the prospect potentially has concerns or pain points that you can help with, then at the very beginning of your presentation, you can share the summary of your findings in previous conversations or through your research, and you can outline, this is what we've learned about you. And you can have all the different bullet points of, and ideally these could map or match up with the pain points that you help with. But you're having challenges with this, you're having challenges with that, and you want to improve this. And then you want to confirm with them, do I have those correct? Is there anything you want to change or add to that? So right here on the front end of the presentation, it's all about the prospect, and you're maybe learning more about them by getting them to add more to your findings, and you're confirming that you have everything okay. Now, there could be a chance where you haven't really had enough of a chance to talk to them yet about their pain points or their needs. That's not ideal, but that could certainly be the case. If that's the case, you can still use the pain points building block, but you could be more generic to instead say, this is what you're dealing, these are the challenges you're dealing with. You could be more generic to say, a lot of businesses that we work with have challenges with this and have challenges with that and have challenges with this. And then you could confirm with them, are those challenges for you? Or do you have anything similar? Do you have anything to add to that? Or you want to share a little bit more right now about your challenges? So there you're learning more about them. Hopefully you've already done that though. Once you've really confirmed what they are interested in or having concerns with, then you could start to transition the attention from the prospect to you. So this is where you're transitioning from the 20% on the prospect to the 80% of the presentation on you. And instead of just jumping right towards, these are our products and this is what we sell and this is where our offices are, you're first talking about how you can help them. So based on the challenges you're having, here is how we can help you. We can help you to increase this, we can help you to improve that, and we can help you to decrease this. Now, how do we do that? Now you're progressing to your product building block, and this is where you do talk about, this is what you do, this is what you sell. So this is where you've just talked about the improvements that you can make. Now you're going to talk about how you deliver those improvements, how you make those improvements, and it's by delivering your products or services. And we do that by, and this is where you can talk about what you do. And this, if you're doing a demonstration, this is where you could start to actually show the product, how it works. If you're just sharing details, this is where you might want to go into the details of what the product is, what it includes, and whatnot. You don't want to end there when you're in terms of talking about your product. You want to continue on to get into details about how you're different. If you have differentiation, you don't want to forget that. This is where you want to include that. Then you could share any bragging points about your company that are worth mentioning. If you won awards, this is where you want to include that. If if there's certain details about your organization, a woman-owned business, been in business for 100 years, whatever, this is where you want to include that. And then you can wrap up with sharing an example of another customer that you've helped similar to them. So here's an example of someone else that's like you that we helped. And so you could share basically a case study, a name drop example at the end using your name drop building block. And so that's an outline there. Now, certainly there's a lot more information specific to you that you could plug into those blocks. But what I want to share with you is an outline to organize the flow of your presentation. There's no manipulation here of doing something very tricky on the front end, just telling a story in the first minute of your presentation so you capture some sort of attention. There's no real trickery manipulation here. This is just an optimum flow of starting out about them, confirming what you know about them, talking about how you can help them, explaining how you will help them in that way, sharing an example of someone else that you've helped. So hopefully that gives you some ideas. Now that is an outline of the presentation. Of course, if you want to create sales presentations that close, it doesn't really stop there. Then there should be some sort of close attempt at the end. And I definitely want to give you a few tactics that you can use there. So one close tactic is to trial close. This is more of like a test close where you're asking questions to identify what is the prospect thinking, where are we at? And so questions like, what do you think? How would that help you? Is that something you would use? Are we going in the right direction? Is this what you were expecting to see? So not just, doing all the talking and then trying to close. This is where you try to basically do a temperature check on the prospect. Now, one thing about trial close questions is that these aren't just for the end of the presentation. You would want to ask these throughout the presentation because this is going to extract very valuable information from the prospect. And that could allow you to change directions if you need to. Like, for example, if let's say you were showing something that really the prospect wasn't interested in, or was the wrong thing to show the prospect, if you don't find that out till the end of the presentation, then you might have just wasted all your time showing the wrong thing. If you check in halfway and say, is this what you were expecting to see? What do you think so far? And then you learn that you're going in the wrong direction. You could then adjust the sales and correct the course for the remainder of the presentation. So very valuable information. I personally think you can trial close every time you talk to the prospect. In every conversation, you can check in to say, are we going in the right direction? Is this looking good so far? So then you could ask some soft closing questions. What do you want to do next? What direction do you want to go from here? Do you want to keep, continue talking about this? When would you like to meet again? What does the path forward look like for you? So those are very soft, consultative closing questions. It's up to you whether you want to be that soft and let the customer just if you want to let the prospect know, let me correct that. If you want to let the prospect determine what you do next, that can be a very powerful thing to do. And certainly if the prospect is determining what you do next, then you certainly know that what you're doing next is the right, thing in the prospect's eyes. But, you really need to do other things in order to be such a soft closer, meaning you need to communicate how you can help. You need to qualify the prospect. You need to make sure you're going in the right direction, because if you've done all the other things, then you can close very softly because you have a qualified prospect and you've built interest, you've built rapport. But if you don't do those things, then you might need to be a little bit more firm in your close and not let the prospect determine what to do next. You might want to be more persuasive, a little bit more firm. Are you ready to move to the next step? What would you need to be able to make a commitment to move forward? If you have everything you want, are you prepared to move forward? When are you going to make your decision? So those are just some hard closing questions, certainly not a comprehensive list, or those aren't questions that work for the end of every presentation, but just an example of how you might want to close at the end. Are we ready to move forward? The key thing here is the next thing I'm going to show you actually provides a tool and a framework for how to ask these questions and how to work with your prospect to be a little bit more firm and hard close. And that is to use a tool called a partnership plan. At the most basic level, don't make this more complicated than it needs to be. This is just a table of what needs to happen from the end of the presentation until either the prospect purchasing or the prospect going live or using your product. So this is just a list of everything that both you and the prospect need to do between now and then. And you can include some anticipated due dates, who's going to own each task, and the status. And you can build this from your experience before you're delivering your presentation. So do a brainstorm of all the steps on your own from your experience, and then have this either as a printout or a slide at the end of your presentation, and you can present this as a partnership plan. If you and the prospect, if they're going to become a customer, view that as the building of a partnership, and this is the plan of how you begin that partnership and build that partnership together. So the way you would present this is at the end of the presentation, you could say something like this: if you'd like to keep moving forward, this is what our partnership plan could look like. These are some of the steps that need to be taken between now and you getting up and running. And based on what we've discussed today, are you interested in moving forward with this plan? So right there is your close. You're not closing for the purchase, you're closing for agreement with this plan, which this plan basically includes them purchasing. So, you're not necessarily saying sign here, give me your credit card number, or sign the contract, but you're getting them to agree to the plan and agreeing to move forward. So this can be a very effective way to close them. Now, a very likely scenario is that they see the plan, but maybe they're not ready to commit to purchasing and moving forward with everything. And so when that happens, you can take a step back, and that's a logical thing to do. That's a logical thing for the prospect to not agree to, and a logical thing for you to then do would be focus your close on the next step, because the next step is what needs to happen anyways. Whether or not they agree to everything here, or some of it, the next thing that happens is the thing that you logically need to close for. And you could respond with something like, oh, okay, no problem at all. Do you have at least enough interest to commit to the next step? So whatever the next step is, and maybe it's a meeting next week or some sort of exchange of information, whatever, do you at least have enough interest to agree to that? So now you're closing them on the next step, and that keeps everything moving forward. Now, whether they agree to the next step or they agree to the whole thing, basically, if you're moving forward in some way or another, what you would want to do is you'd want to finalize this plan together, because remember, this was just a brain dump, a brainstorm for that you performed on your own. The prospect's going to be involved in this, so you need their input. So build the plan together so you could, modify this in real time. Great. Do these steps and estimates look acceptable, look correct and acceptable to you? So maybe they want to add something. Maybe there's something not correct. Maybe the timing isn't correct. So you work together with the potential partner who's now been promoted from prospect to potential partner, and you build and finalize this plan together. Now, the great thing about having this plan is that, you can map out these dates, but as you well know, prospects can delay, they can kick the can down the road, they can go silent on you, and you can easily fall off this timeline. But if you have this agreed plan, then you can always keep going back to this plan. So for example, let's say that on this plan, or let's say you agree to meet and have some sort of call and meeting in 1 month. Then when you're confirming that meeting, the prospect says, we're going to need to delay 1 month on that meeting. Well, when this happens, you can use the partnership plan to keep everything on track by saying something like, yeah, sure, we can definitely delay the meeting, no problem at all. But according to our according to our agreed upon partnership plan, you want to have the system implemented by January 1st. And if we delay that meeting to next month, that will most likely impact that date. So either A, we need to move the date. So no, you said you want it by January 1st. If you want to delay that meeting, no problem at all. Can we move the date, the go live date, to February 1st? So either we're modifying the plan, or are you sure you want to move that meeting because it's going to impact us? Do you want to keep the meeting at the agreed upon time? So that alone that partnership plan can help you with, basically delivering sales presentations at close. And that's really our goal here today. But let's take a step back and think about the key things from this to keep in mind. Really, the key thing that I suggest you change, and the key thing that a lot of salespeople make as a mistake, is missing some of those steps before the presentation. So don't skip that conversation where you learn more about the prospect. And by learning about the prospect, you can then tailor your presentation to them, and that can make the difference. And when you have that information, you can make the presentation more about the prospect than about you. Remember, the product pusher is the one who shows up and doesn't know anything about the prospect. And, here's the company I work for. This is what we sell. Do you need what I sell? Be a more consultative salesperson. Learn more about the prospect, tailor the presentation to the prospect. And then when you're trying to close your presentation, have a partnership plan there at the end. Use the partnership plan to close the prospect, not only for the presentation, but as a tool to continue to manage the sales process ongoing after your presentation all the way to your close. That's pretty much it. Hopefully you got some good tips from this here today. If you want to return the favor of those tips, very easy for you to do. Just simply like, comment, share this video, subscribe to our channel. Any or all of those don't cost you anything, and they help us tremendously. If you like these tips and these long videos, you may want to follow us on any or all of these social platforms. We post sales tips in 30 to 60 increment videos every morning on these social platforms. So it's a great way to get sort of bite-sized sales tips, be reminded of the stuff you might hear in these long videos, and it's also a great way to support us as well by following us and liking any of our content. If you want more, if you're saying this is really good stuff and I want more of this, you may want to consider looking into the smart sales system, which is what everything that I talked to you about here today is part of this smart sales system. SMART stands for sales messaging and response tactics. So we basically, our approach is to make salespeople sell more by making them smart. And we refer to smart as we get them smart. We get them to be smart by improving their sales message. As you can see, a lot of what we talked about here today was having good questions to ask, and then presenting that information in a very logical, optimum way. And the smart sales system can help you to organize all of that. And it's a system, because this is not just a lot of tips that we shoot you with a fire hose. This is actually a step-by-step system that you can go through, and there's no, it's completely clear what you need to do next and what you need to do in these situations. And the first thing that you do is you go through level 1 of the sales system, which is to organize your sales message. As you can see, that was part of having a good sales presentation, was organizing and building your sales message. And the smart system will take you through a step-by-step process to build your sales message. Level 2 of the smart sales system is then to organize your message into a call script or emails. And as you can see, you can use your sales message to organize your to create a sales presentation that is an optimum structure to help you to close deals. Once you've organized your sales tools and your scripts, then it's about execution, and that's level 3 of the smart sales system, which is putting all that stuff into practice. So once you've created your cold call script, what are some things you can do what are the processes you can use for cold calling, cold emailing, objection handling? And that's level 3 of the smart sales system. Now, the great news is, if you like this and you want to take a step forward, you can start to implement the smart sales system without any investment, because it is all on YouTube for free. There are videos that take you through each step of this of this system. So completely free. Check out our YouTube channel, subscribe if you want more information. Now, if you started that or you want more than that, the next upgrade from there would be to consider our software platform, which is called Sales Scripter. Sales Scripter, the reason why we give away a lot of our training for free is because our business model is to sell our software platform called Sales Scripter, and it aligns with the smart sales system. For example, level 1 of the smart sales system is to build your sales message. There is an area of Sales Scripter called the Sales Message Builder, which will take you through all of the different steps and organize all of your thoughts. And then once you've done that in the Sales Message Builder, there's an area in Sales Scripter called the Sales Playbook, that aligns with level 2. It is a library of cold call scripts and emails and voicemails, objection responses, all sorts of stuff. And that library fills in with your sales message instantly once you've done that. And then there are tools in Sales Scripter for level 3, such as CRM, and to help you with cold calling, cold emailing, email automation, objection handling, because we have a CRM and email automation in Sales Scripter. Now, if you want more help from there, the upgrade from there would be to purchase consulting hours with me, where I can take you through all of that, any of that, and you just we sell buckets of time with me, and I can help you with any of that. Anyways, if that's interesting, but you're still not sure what to do next, or where none of those really fit exactly, another option is to purchase the book, The Smart Sales System, Sell Smarter, Not Harder. And here's a link on Amazon where you can get a copy of yours. That's pretty much it. If you want more information or have any questions, the best place to go is salesscripter.com. There's a chat window on there, an email address if you want to contact us, plenty of information, plenty of free resources such as videos, podcasts, ebooks that you can download for free. So hope to see you there, and hope to see you on the next training session. Thanks for being here. Have a great day. Take care. Bye.